But Anne-Marie, can I ask you regarding policing and sort of the political masters? Do you hold the politicians ultimately responsible for that which the police do? Because it seems to me that certainly over that thing in London, and we saw it Clapham Common, which I mean, I wasn't very. There's so many levels of hypocrisy in this one. How come BLM rallies aren't treated in the same way? And is that a political decision or is it a policing decision? What do you think when it comes to those kind of fine balances?
The politics has created the police, David. I mean, if you look at how police are trained, they are trained as if they are left-wing social workers. They don't, enforcement of the law, objective, fearless, unbiased enforcement of the law is not an issue. And I've read through police training. It's simply, they might give a nod to actual enforcement of criminal law every so often, but most of it is social. It's about why people commit crime. People being excluded and marginalized, and minorities who are not integrated in society. No wonder they turn to crime, because they're excluded and they're victims of racism. This is how the police are trained. It's in their training documents. That's the problem of the government. Now, that was Labour who did all this. They leftified the public sector.
Yeah.
But the Tories have been in now. This is their 12th year. What have they done?
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing to change it. Nothing. And now to get into the police, you have to be woke. I remember a woman who was trying to join the police, and in her application, they asked her about this, which is bizarre. She did say, actually, no, I don't think that people can change sex. She wasn't allowed to join the police because she didn't think people could change sex. They politely refused her application to join the police.
Yeah.
That's where we are. That's why it's dominated by the uber woke left. And that's Labour's fault. But the Tories have done nothing about it because they're too afraid of the uber woke press, and they're lazy.
I mean, maybe you heard me say to Miriam as well earlier, Anne-Marie, that Priti Patel has proven to be a catastrophic disaster and arguably one of the worst Home Secretaries we've had. And that's saying something. That is saying, oh, I know it is, yeah. But I mean, her only game seems to be put out, as you just said, put out a press release, but don't actually do anything. So the dinghies can still, I mean, we mightn't be able to go across to France on holidays, but the illegals can come across in their dinghies. It's not a problem. And old Pretty's going to meet them with a press release. And, and then if they complain about the barracks they're put up in, they'll move to be somewhere. What a state. This is what I said at the beginning of the show. What an absolute state British politics are. Maybe there's never been a better time for a party such as yourselves to actually almost talk about real politics, not the kind of absolute garbage that Johnson and his regime put out, and Starmer and his mob are even worse.
They are even worse. And you know what? The other night, I watched Priti Patel in the Commons, and she was talking. She had all the sound bites. You know how they were talking about how women aren't safe and women have to hold their keys in their hand and pretend to be on the phone. And I'm not mocking that. I'm not mocking that at all. What I am saying is that Priti Patel, for her to stand in the Commons and repeat these sound bites, is insulting from the Home Secretary. It's insulting. That is the language for people having a cup of coffee if we had a coffee shop open. Yeah. That's what it is not. The Home Secretary should not be coming out with that sort of flannel. She ought to know, as a Conservative, what the problem is here. The problem is the left-wing police and the lack of punishment for violent crimes, particularly sex offences. There's no punishment. There's none. You get a couple of years, if that, and serve half of it. This is why these violent, particularly sex offenders, know they can go out and do whatever they like. They're not afraid of it. They're not afraid of the law. They don't respect the police. I mean, come on. If you take a group, getting back to the rape gang, the grooming gangs again. Take a gang coming over from Pakistan. They utter contempt for white people, utter contempt for women. And then they see our policemen wearing high heels and nail varnish and dancing around with whistles and rainbows. What are they going to think? And then if one of them does get caught once in a blue moon, they'll get a sentence of a few years, be out in half, back on benefits, back walking around supermarkets in Rochdale where their victims have to bump into them, and even be deported and still here. So even when we deport people, they're still here, still on benefits, and the police are going around with whistles and rainbows. What the hell do we expect gangs coming from rural Pakistan to think of us? What do we expect? They're laughing at us, and they're pretty right to. They're right to. It's pathetic. It's absolutely. I never thought I would see the day that Britain, the country I've loved and admired so much, would be a laughing stock among so many people in the world, and it is. And it's down to Labour and the Conservatives.